I'm DJ.
And I'm Andrew,
Welcome to One Shot Savage.
a TTRPG podcast where we seek out new ways to tell your stories through different systems and games. Today, we're just talking. DJ and I have been, as you may have heard in recent episodes, we've been going through a lot of transition and crazy stuff. You know, I moved, got hit by 2 tornadoes, where everybody's safe and fine, but it was a lot of stuff that we had to deal with for a couple weeks there. Then DJ bought a house. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's great.
It sounds great.
I'll enjoy it eventually.
Yeah. And then, you know, it's like I ended up picking up a bunch of extra work for my contract work as a graphic designer. That's been stressful being a full-time dad at the same time. Blah, blah, blah.
Not to mention, we're finishing our Zine Quest projects.
Yep.
I handed mine off to the editor.
Woo!
It is I should probably add him to the document so he can actually see it.
So you haven't, is what you're saying.
I've handed him money and a contract.
There you go. Yeah. So all that to say, it was only I kind of had a whole month once I officially delayed Battle School. Amidst all of that, having joined the long list of delayed Kickstarters, just kind of started to try and slow down. I got into trying to move really fast out of the desire to move quick, to move quick and to deliver and to keep with the hype train. That train needs to be restarted entirely whenever I get to release. It's not terribly far away, but I also have not reestablished a deadline for myself because I want it to be good. I want it to be right. And I can't put that timeline on it right now with a lot of the new factors in my life.
I feel that.
But it should be soon. I'm hoping in the next month that all layout is done and that I've got a PDF in everybody's hands. So if you're hearing this in the next couple weeks, it could be a couple weeks out. The PDF is mostly done. I've been working through layout. I've been adding in more art. That takes a lot of time because I'm doing 90% of the art myself. But yeah, been busy. DJ's been kicking butt. They're wrapping up their first arc of the Eye of the Tyrant, which has been an awesome actual play. I haven't been able to catch all the episodes, but man, you've got a great cast. It's been a lot of fun seeing clips and watching some of the episodes and keeping up on stuff. How you feeling about your upcoming finale here?
So, a little bummed on some parts.
Yeah.
We're losing some players.
Damn.
Just because life, right? And you know, I get it, right? I'm completely understand. So what we're doing is 1 or 2 are definitely going to stick around, and in the future, kind of like with it's season 2 soft reboot, continue the story of those people. It's not really even a soft reboot at that point. It's literally just continuing the story of those player characters. But you know, here's the thing: it's a lot to commit to when you sign up for an actual play. And I think in the future, what I want to do is kind of like dive in for a weekend, record like over 3 days, like 10 episodes,
do it,
and
Panic
then do it
Table
again.
did.
Yeah, exactly. And that way it's like, cool, we've got it. We only had to take up a couple weekends of people's lives and, you know, get it through. So hopefully that's what's going to happen. But I am very excited for the season finale. It might have aired by this point.
Yeah.
Depends on
Next 2 weeks.
when
This is probably 2
something
weeks
like that.
So.
But, you know, with the pink security stuff, like I said, I'm handing that off to the editor. Going to eventually start to really promote the backer kit. It's been one of those things where it's like there are more important causes to give your money to right now than to give me more money.
I wish I could have submitted Battle School to like the DTRPGs for Palestine, right? Like it's not done, so I can't. Right? Like that's where I want the money to go, but I want people to still be able to get something from me. So that's
exactly. So, you know, if you are interested and you want to, you know, jump on Pink Security, feel free. The backer kit's up. I'm going to leave it up for probably until August, I think.
You can leave it up all the way until you order books, to be completely
Yeah,
honest,
exactly.
right? So
Yep. And yeah, so I'm gonna do that.
Yeah.
And right now, it's kind of nice because I am ending an actual play.
Mm-hmm.
Not ending, but like know,
Yeah.
taking
Bookend.
a short hiatus. Yeah, bookending an actual play. That allows me to sit and think about future actual plays.
Yeah.
And go, what do I want to do? But also, like, at the same time, like, my Monday night game ended. And so someone's going to be running a game for me. And it's like, oh, all of a sudden, like, this overcrowded table of my life is becoming less overcrowded.
It's exciting.
Just piece by piece, right? We've bought the house. Like,
Yeah.
Amber and I were talking about that. And we're like, oh my gosh, well, like, we've bought the house. All the things that like we want to save money for now are tiny in comparison, right? So like wanting to like fix things up and stuff, I'm just like, oh, cool. So it's basically like I went from having the fullest table of so many things to do to okay, it's slowly started to be cleaned up, and I'm starting to breathe and I'm having time. So it's great.
Okay, so here's a question, and it's totally targeted because I have an answer to the question for myself. So I'm not going to hop on the answer right away unless you don't have an answer. What have you been reading? Anything new?
So here's the thing. I'm always reading the same thing, which is I have an Audible subscription for one reason and one reason only. And it is Star Wars: The High Republic books.
Heck yeah, dude.
I'm obsessed, and so therefore I'm obsessed with the Acolyte because it's also
People
High Republic.
hate the Acolyte as of episode 3.
They can bite me. I'm having so much fun with it. I'm absolutely having a blast. I don't care what they say.
I haven't watched it. I've
just
just heard the hot takes, and I'm just like, man, I'd love to watch the show, but I'm so not invested right now. As a hardcore Star Wars fan, I'm tired.
No, that's completely fine. I'm extra invested because like I've read High Republic comic books, I've read the books, I know who Vernestra Rowe is, like I know these characters. So for me it's that. I would like to start reading some other things as well, and I probably will as my time begins to free up a little bit more and like my life becomes a little bit more organized chaos. But I'm still in Red Rising.
Oh, you should finish that.
I know, it's such a long book.
It's like my favorite book of all time, dude. It's so good. Okay, so Red Rising.
What about you? What are you reading?
Oh well, I'm mostly reading TTRPG books right now. I don't have a novel or anything that I'm in right this second. Technically, I am still in the middle of book 4 of the Red Rising series, but that's because it's there's a trilogy, right? The first 3 books, and then that's done. That is its own narrative. And then book 4 starts, and they do the thing that a lot of shows do, which is they add in a bigger cast of characters and trying to get you invested into new characters. And Pierce Brown is an amazing author. It's so good. I don't think I'd have a problem getting through it if my life looked a little bit different right now, because I need to listen to all of it faster, and it's hard to keep up with like 4 or 5 narratives. They don't feel tied together yet, and so I'm like halfway through the book, and I go, I don't know what it's about right now. So I like need to restart and like go on a long drive and not stop until the book's done.
Exactly. I have to consume books in about 4 to 5 hours at a time.
Yeah,
and that really is what helps me like get into and stay grounded in the book. That's hard as an adult.
Yeah, it is. I miss being able to like binge a summer day and just like read a whole book. Like I aggressively read the Pendragon books. They're like a sci-fi. It's not like Arthur Pendragon. They were so cool. They were basically kid Doctor Who stories. Now that I look at it, because I wasn't familiar with Doctor Who at the time, but it was just like getting whisked away to all these different worlds and like trying to stop crises. There we go. And loved those books. But I remember just like sitting on my porch, getting a sunburn, reading an entire book in a day for the first time, like way back when I was like 10, 12.
Well, when all of the magical high school books came out, that shall not be named, like when the final one came
what?
out, I finally got to sit down and read them because my mom had finally went, I don't
Allowed it?
care anymore, right? And
As
so
most
I
Christian
sat down.
moms did.
Exactly. Eventually, it was just like whatever. And so I sat down and like I read one of those every day.
That's awesome.
For a week in the summer because I was like, I am going to be caught up on this culture.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I miss those deep dives.
Okay, so
with the book.
So that's where we're at with reading. Like I said, I'm reading a lot of TTRPG books. I'll get to that later. I'm kind of on hold for my novel consumption now. Shows. You said you're watching The Acolyte.
Absolutely.
Other than Acolyte, what do you guys been watching and getting into?
Freaking Dark Matter.
That's a weird show. Yeah, we
based
stopped,
off of
but
the book series. Oh my goodness, it's really good.
where are you at? Because I think
I'm caught up.
watched like 5 episodes,
Yeah,
and the pacing was bad. I feel like I loved almost everything about it, but it felt like I knew too much about it, and the characters were playing catch up for so many of the first few episodes of the show. And I'm like, I just want to get into the crazy stuff. Please, can we move past these things? So it was, I liked it.
I can agree. Yeah,
but I kind of haven't gotten back to the show. We might not pick it back up.
it's a season 1 thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's season 1. We're going for a season 2.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But yeah, no, I can agree. It's just one of those things where I would have loved to have seen more of the crazy,
Worlds.
other worlds.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, can you give a one paragraph summary of what this show's about without spoiling all the episodes?
Dark Matter is Monty Cook Games The Strange. I know that's not going to help you, but essentially it's like it's all about like this scientist who an alternate version of himself figures out how to put himself into a quantum state so that he can walk basically down a corridor between universes. That's
so
it.
he's
That is the
Schrodinger's
premise of the show.
dude.
He is Schrodinger's cat.
And as a result can hop parallel timelines. And to be clear, all of that is in the trailer, and
Yes.
it takes forever in episodes 1, 2, and 3 for everybody to understand that. And that's what drove me a little crazy.
I kind of wish they hadn't put any of that in the trailer.
I agree. Yeah.
Because I would have loved to have been theorizing about it. They didn't give me a lot to theorize. Instead, it's just been more of like a sit and watch. Other shows that we're watching, I think that's really it right now.
right,
we're
so-
rewatching Breaking Bad.
That's nice. We're watching Suits. We
Started that. I think we were just having a hard time like really getting it because that's a slow burn.
Oh yeah, it's. I mean,
for
we
things to
wanted
start
to
getting
watch it
excited.
because it had like critical acclaim, and it has 8 seasons. So we just needed like a fun, but like not just strictly comedy kind of show that we could more casually watch regularly. And that we wouldn't like with Dark Matter, we were like running into the next episode coming out. And I love weekly releases. Let me be very clear.
Some shows just can't.
Some shows it drives me crazy.
Yeah.
And so we just needed something we could just every night we could turn it on, not worry about whether or not it was coming out or not. Because we got in this vein all of a sudden where we were watching a bunch of weekly shows and it was so annoying.
Yep. It can't stay grounded in some of them. Some of them are great.
So why am
some
I
of them are
talking
little
about all of this
sitcoms.
media? Haha, here's the reveal. It's been 14 minutes of us just talking about other media. Because all of it influences storytelling. And I let's take Red Rising. If you're not familiar with Red Rising, it's like a revolution based kind of Grecian sci-fi universe with like a caste system. I won't go too deep into it because there's so much I don't want to spoil for anybody reading like the first couple chapters. It's incredible. It's my favorite series of all time. Please read it. Pierce Brown is a god when it comes to huge reveals that feel earned, and not like he pulled one over on you in a unfair way, but in a holy shit, what did I just read kind of way.
Yeah.
And he uses in the way that like at the table of tabletop gaming, you know, he uses the camera really well. You know, he shows you stuff on purpose and you think you know the whole story. And then later on, you realize something happened off camera and you're like, what? And everything switches. And it's some of the best moments I've had as a reader. The reason why I bring up Red Rising, when I was working on Battle School early on, a lot of the ways that like they handle war and some of these cool sci-fi themes in mostly books 2 and 3 were just fascinating to me. He would be telling you the story in terms of the battle, right? Like in the Star Wars kind of parallel, the massive empire-wide battle. Not empire-wide, but you get what I'm saying, like fleets of ships.
Yeah.
And then he would zoom in to the one person that just breached the hull of another one's running through the halls, beating everybody up. And then it would zoom back out. And it didn't feel like he's rack focusing and like, it wasn't whiplashy. Yeah. It felt like one story. I tried to do this in my game of Tome. How do you feel like that went? Because I think you know what I'm talking about. Do you remember when you guys were on the one ship and then I think Comrade was working on the network.
Oh, yeah.
And then, I think that went really well. There were people inside of the simulation. So we were basically doing people inside of the Matrix and then people outside of the Matrix, both having huge conflicts. And that there was like time asynchronousness. So the people outside of the simulation had like 5 minutes to do their turn. Not real world 5 minutes, but like player 5 minutes instead of 10 seconds or whatever. That's an example of me going, I consume this in media and I want to pull this off at the table. What are some of your things that either recently you've read or watched that you want to adopt some game mechanic, tabletop experience, or have done in the past that you felt like were successful?
Oh man. In the past I've done like let's be honest. I get very I don't play video games a lot, right? I would like to. I wish I could play video games a little bit more. I just know how much focus I can give to certain things, but when I do and I'm really enjoying it, it usually ends up shining through in my games. For example, I came up with a whole fantasy cyberpunk world after playing Cyberpunk 2077, finally, like actually finishing it. However many years after it came out, I finally sat down and just played through the whole thing. Mass Effect has a huge inspiration on me in the Eye of the Tyrant. I very much like that. I basically, I don't want to take anything beat for beat from a story, but a trope or two, the ancient evil, all of that, like that is where I start to go, ooh, this sounds fun. And so often I find that if I'm feeling uninspired in my games, I just, start to consume anything and everything I can. And it usually comes out completely different, which is good, right? Because then you're not just like copying and pasting, the Reaper plot or something stupid like that. But instead you're like, oh, I kind of like that.
Yeah.
What if I flip it on its head and, do something small scale with it,
yeah,
that's what I've been
what's
doing.
Something more specifically that you feel like you not ripped, but like that you go, oh yeah, I did this in Eye of the Tyrant, and like it was inspired by something in Mass Effect or whatever.
Yeah, so it didn't start with the Eye of the Tyrant, because that's a long running world in general for me. Been running it for over a year and a half, almost 2 years. No, it's been over 2 years because it started before Cypher. It was a 5th edition campaign at first.
Oh, right. It's like the Mechana. What did you call it? I'm sorry.
So mechanization is the when I switched to Cypher, and that was the more modern stuff.
Got it.
And before that,
Is Fantasy Aderos.
Is Aderos.
Yeah.
And so it's funny, the Prothean thing is the thing that I was specifically picking off from Mass Effect, and it's not necessarily the like aliens. I mean, it is. We learned that in the Eye of the Tyrant. But it's more so like, oh, this group of people that existed before, right? And they were wiped out by the gods, and we don't know why.
Yeah.
But they had a reason. And basically, because they were wiped out, like the gods came down and they said, hey, we're not going to do that again. We just want you to know. But we're building you up, the successors of the world, the next people. Just go on and live your lives. We're going to separate ourselves. Yeah. And that thread is more interesting, obviously, for my players in that world that have played through each of the iterations, because like they saw it, and it all came from session 0, when I was just like, oh, here's a one-shot kind of idea for you to experience this world. You found ruins underneath this desert, and they're like, oh, cool. Do I know anything about the ruins? I was like, ooh, I don't know. Do you? Roll me a history check.
Yep. And
it was like, oh, yeah, you do. And then I came up with this whole spiel of this precursor race of the Varsha in that session, and basically was like, okay, cool. And then I was like, oh, I can definitely take some influences from Mass Effect on, like, there's hidden technology all over. And then as we get to the Eye of the Tyrant, we find out, oh, they didn't just exist on Aderos. They were a galactic civilization that was super advanced. Right. And so, like, they have, like, clues and hints and pieces all over the galaxy. So yeah, that was definitely
I'll say I'm a more casual Mass Effect fan. I love the games. I played through 1, 2, and 3, and didn't play the other stuff.
I like Andromeda.
It's fine. You're welcome to. But like I said, I played through them all pretty much like once. Other than I think in 2, I tried to play through it a couple times to see some of the different plots or whatever, and I wonder how much of the Protean, what were they called?
Prothean.
That I like adopted for Tome and stuff, or if I don't know, it's enough of a common trope to have an ancient civilization underlying your setting. But yeah, like when you're getting into sci-fi and it's galactic and stuff, it's like it reminds me of Halo. It reminds me, like of that era of gaming for me that so much influenced a lot of the genre I explore.
For me, it just makes so much sense too, because like, look at our own universe and galaxy. It's like it's billions upon billions upon billions of years old, right?
Yep.
And you think, oh, well, like, are we alone out there? And you start looking at things like, big space, there's just so much distance between us. And it's like, oh man, it's possible. Cause like you look up in the night sky and like those dim stars are the ones that have gone out.
Wait, did
like,
you watch Three Body Problem yet?
No, I haven't watched Three Body Problem yet.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, well, it's amazing. I'm not going to get into the show. It's a book too. My wife's reading through the novel now after we watched the show. And there's more to come for this show. But the second book is called The Dark Forest Theory. It's just called The Dark Forest, but it spawned a theory in kind of theoretical astrophysics. I don't know what the actual subject matter is. But this show has attacked very scientific principles in a very creative and realistic way that it's actually been a conversation in those professional spaces, from what I understand. Dark Forest is very simple. It's the question of, there's another theory or whatever that it parallels, but basically it's like, why are we alone in the universe? We've never heard of another civilization. They've never done anything. And basically it's, it's because we're in a dark forest, and anybody that makes too much noise wakes the beast.
Right.
And I kind of adopted that in Tome a bit with the Voon. It's kind of like an eldritch entity that I put out there, and why my super civilization got nuked. Right, they made too much noise, and they kind of poked the bear. That's a freaking phenomenal show. If you haven't read it or watched it, it's so good. But let's move forward into the gaming space a little bit more directly. I have been finding that in my evolution as a gamer, this was also a TikTok-y kind of conversation, that I have moved from let me use the direct parallel. D&D pipeline to TTRPG generality, NSR, OSR, narrative focus, whatever, that spectrum has been paralleled by other people before myself, which I don't remember who. Sorry, I would cite it if I could. To the board gamer pipeline. So you start out with board games when you're a kid, and you're playing Candyland, Monopoly. You're playing what I'll call the target board games. Okay. You're playing the games that pretty much everybody has access to. They're a little bit more just like straightforward, very simple mechanics. And everybody can kind of play and engage on that level. And that's a lot of starting with D&D for a lot of people. It's the most common game. Yeah. You can get a pickup game going. People are familiar with it in pop culture. They at least know what to expect on some level because of Stranger Things or whatever. And then some people stay there. I will cite my family, right? My family plays euchre. They play cribbage. They play old people normal games, right? Like that is it. I have been,
for those of you outside of Michigan, euchre is a card game that
they know what
most plays. No, I'm telling you, they don't. That's the thing.
It's like gin rummy. It's but it's a card game. And sorry, I lost my train of thought. So they basically, you start out in those places, and some people never leave them because that's what they like, and they genuinely don't want to try or learn something outside of that either it's too weirdly themed, or it's too many mechanics, or somebody has to explain it for 45 minutes, right? They think that it's too complicated to get outside of their initial entry point. That is D&D to a T in a lot of ways, right? Like people are like, look, I experienced a lot of learning fatigue when I got into D&D. I'm comfortable here. I don't want to leave. Yep. And we were there for a long time. I was like, why would I play something else? I already know this. I have hundreds of dollars invested in these books. I don't want to play anything else. I don't want to try to convince people to play something else, blah, blah, blah. Now I live in the world that I occupied in terms of board games, which was I liked collecting games. I liked picking up a new weird game that uses maybe familiar mechanics, that flips them on their head, that does something else, and maybe it has a really cool theme to go with it. Nowadays, that's what I do with TTRPGs. I'm picking up stuff like every couple weeks because there's so many outside of that initial sphere, and that's a big reason why we started the podcast. So, anything on that topic before I jump into some games I've been looking at?
Yeah, so it's kind of a topic that's been talked about in the TikTok space, like you're saying, but like I still very much find myself to be a long-term game player.
Long campaigns.
Right. Long campaigns. Yeah. I want to pick a system, focus on it. I might not stick with that system forever, or I might revisit it later, but like I am very much in that track of like, I want a campaign. I want the bonding experience for a long period of time with people. Yeah, that's the type of games I want. Mm-hmm. I do, however, love collecting these TTRPGs, and it's frustrating because so many of them I'm like, oh no, I'm never gonna get to play this.
Did you see Klaus's video that he did the other day? So somebody was
Probably.
saying, somebody said, Jeff from When Suddenly was like, hey, whatever happened to Apocalypse Keys, which was Kickstarted,
yeah.
super successful game.
Yes.
I've seen it on shelves for years, and
Yep.
I've never known anybody that played it. And basically, that's kind of what Jeff was getting at. It's not to dog on that system. I don't think anybody is actually thinking of it negatively. I would love to own it and read through it more. It seems interesting, but it's very like secret society focused. And like, I don't know a lot about it. I'm not going to pretend like I am an authority on it, but basically that was the conversation of like, hey, whatever happened to this game? It popped off. Everybody was excited, and then nobody ran it. And then Klaus made a video basically on that problem, which I think I'm starting to hit, where it's like, I picked up Cyber plus Punk, and I'm so excited to play this and jump into it and learn about it. And then I picked up, and then like he just keeps going, and he's having an existential breakdown as he's going through all these cool games that he's picked up and enjoyed. And so there's a problem side of this, right? That is the collecting acquisition, but but the problem, quote unquote, I kind of tried and flip it, and I've just treated it as what this podcast is for me. It is me learning how to tell better stories through different systems of games. Tagline, he said it. And I'm really enjoying that. Specifically in learning better design philosophy for writing games, and in why even bother writing a new game if there might be games that do it better already out there, because there's hundreds of them and they probably have already tried it. So
I 100%, because like, here's the big thing. Usually when something like that happens, there's a big Kickstarter, you as a person backing it are thinking, I want to play this.
Yeah.
Right? I want to play this. I don't
want to run it.
I don't necessarily want to run it.
Yeah.
And for me, a lot of the times I need to have a game ran for me a couple times where it's like, okay, cool. Now I feel comfortable running it.
Yeah.
Now I feel comfortable getting weird with it, right? And I think there are games that do a lot to combat like that. One is going to be Fabula Ultima with the Press Start Adventure, and teaching you how to play the game together as a group, and like taking turns and all of that. Beautiful, wonderful Fabula Ultima. I am going to play it at some point.
Okay, DJ.
I'm working on it right now. Like I'm reading my way through it. I want to have a good understanding that I'm gonna, sit down with my group and be like, all right, so we're gonna do a one shot of this, and it's probably gonna turn into a campaign. But I want to play in it. I want to be the player. I want, like, Final Fantasy's my thing. Dang it.
I'm in a similar boat. I think that what's funny is we're both chronic GMs. And so it's like the weight of being a game master in the systems that we started with was so heavy.
Yeah.
And I think I project that a lot onto new systems. Out of fear of just like, I need to be a perfect reference guide for how to play this game when my players don't understand things. And I don't feel confident to do that, right? Like, I remember shifting from Pathfinder to 5th edition and being terrified of that. And then realizing so many of the skills just were one-to-one, right? It was super easy to just go, I kind of do know how to play this and run this. And in the same way, in doing this podcast, right? Like, let's this is a longer segue, but basically in, like, let's say picking up Mothership and playing with Panic Table, freaking one of my favorite episodes we've ever done. And that was so easy.
It was so easy.
I could run that tomorrow, right? Like, I would happily run that tomorrow. And it was because we had played a bit of Cthulhu, which we played at Chaosium Con for the first time.
Crucible of Aether.
Yeah, and Crucible of Aether, and some other percentile systems that, I've read about and stuff that all feel very inaccessibly highbrow. But they're really not. And then I'm kind of trying to, outside of the podcast, try and do my own version of what we do here. At a home game again, I really miss having a table. And I miss playing with my wife. She was in our game for years, and then we had
also
kids.
miss playing with your wife because she is so much fun at the table.
Yeah, she's terrifying, is what she is.
It's great.
She's a freaking chaos goblin. I throw fireball. She's a legend in our group, and love playing with her. But basically, her and I have talked about a lot of these games that I'm picking up, and it's like, what if we just had like a Friday pickup game every week? You know, we could either keep doing a game that we had been running, or we could play someone that we just picked up, or that Andrew wants to dig into with people. And man, does it sound overwhelming, but I kind of just need to start doing it.
Yeah.
Which leads me to my recent purchases that I'm obsessed with. Rune Cairn is like, I don't even have words for how good this is right now. It is based on top of games that I'm not personally very versed in, but I am like, I understand what they are and I've heard a lot about them, which is Into the Odd and Cairn. So those two games are very narrative focused, but they still lean into, I think, the OSR side. Into the Odd, I think not as much, but Cairn more is an OSR game, which is old school, right? This is Dark Souls. I shit you not. This is Dark Souls. It is at its base, it is a 1 GM, 1 player game, which that's so much fun on its own. Right. I love one-on-one games like that. Those are some of the most fun sessions I've ever ran in my life, but the systems I've played it with weren't always built for that. This is about dying. This is about getting, back to your bonfire, leveling up with souls. It is the function of Dark Souls in a board game, in a TTRPG. And, but it's still very narrative flexible. It's very pick up and play. Like, you can generate the equivalent of a dungeon, right, to run this through, where a player is going to die multiple times and have all the enemies respawn and then them have to go through it again. Like, all of that's in here, and it scratches an itch in my brain for a more combat-centric D&D experience of a dungeon crawl. Yeah. But it's intimate in terms of just one-on-one, and you're able to just get into it. It also comes with just insanely beautiful art. Came with, when I backed it, came with Into the Nine Realms, which is like another adventure book. It's so good, dude. I need you to read it. Just read it. It's so good.
Yeah, absolutely. I will. I have been looking at like some of the games and stuff because I want to go back to something that you had talked about a few minutes ago, where you said, we went from 3.5 over to Pathfinder, and it was like, and then it was Pathfinder over to 5th edition. It was like, oh, all right, cool. This is actually easy to learn. And then also doing Mothership and Call of Cthulhu and stuff like that. And it's like, man, I feel like something I really need to do is just to play all of the base systems. Yeah. Right? Apocalypse World. Yeah. I feel like I will understand a Powered by the Apocalypse game so much better if I sit down and I play Apocalypse World.
Yeah, I've written a game that is, according to other people, inspired by Apocalypse World, and I have not played Apocalypse World.
Yeah. So I feel like, because like I've got Thirsty Sword Lesbians and Advanced Lovers. Like, I've got those on the shelf right now. Mm-hmm. And I've got Avatar The Last Airbender, Avatar Legends up on the shelf too. And it's like, oh, those are all powered by the Apocalypse. But, there are so many, because like a lot of these independent games are hacks or, mods
evolutions
of base games, and there are just so many of them that I would love to do. I need to play in person soon. In general,
I mean, you're welcome to come to whatever I regularly start doing, because I don't.
Amber's gonna have a demo car in a little over a month with her new jobs, meaning I get my truck.
Nice.
Which is gonna be great. But yeah, no, I've been talking to people where it's like, I would love to just like renovate my basement and just be like, cool, I'm gonna start advertising in-person game services, just to get people in front of me so I can order pizza every week, right? And just be like, we're doing this. This is great. Your ticket price covers your snacks and all
it's
of that.
almost like we've both dreamed about opening a game shop named One Shots Tavern before.
What?
Yeah. No, it's so funny. I mean, so those of you, I mean, nobody really knows outside of you and me and like my wife, but it's like years ago, I made a logo for like wanting to do like a fusion coffee, food, and game shop called One Shots. And like I made a logo for it like literally 6 years ago or something. And DJ started doing his game mastering for hire stuff. He was like, hey, I'm going to be doing game mastering for hire under the name One Shots Tavern. And I was like, that's cool and familiar. And he was asking about helping out with some branding stuff. And I'm like, yep, I got you. And like, we didn't use it. It's not the logo we have today. We ended up kind of spinning the idea into One Shot being a person, an NPC. Yeah. So that's why there's an apostrophe S in our name. It's not an error. Because it is a tavern that belongs to One Shot. And he's a mercenary and he's cool. Yeah. It only takes him one shot.
Awesome.
And, yeah, there's double meaning there. But all that to say, we miss in-person stuff, and it's just not the same being online. I will say I'm not anti-online at all. No, so much of my friendships are through online games, whether it's TTRPGs or playing Destiny with the boys. Like, I love that experience. But man, dude, even using the video gaming parallel, it's like back in the day we would have LAN parties, dude.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
Bring your Xbox and connect them all up via a little
bunch of Ethernet cords going everywhere. Tube TVs, you can hear the static right now.
Everybody had their volume up, and the TVs were all within 10 feet of each other.
Oh my gosh!
Oh my
stop
goodness.
Screen peeking.
So
it was great. Yeah. But yeah, I could talk about that all day. My God. So to kind of get back to
it's okay.
Yeah, get back to media consumption, inspiration in games, all that fun stuff. With me reading around is kind of what I'm calling it. Trying to stay inspired for layout in my own book, to see how other people are doing stuff. Less mechanically, more layout right now. But also getting inspired about my next projects. Man, has it been a treat to read through some of these books, and most notably like Runecairn, and then now Cloud Empress, which is built on Mothership. So when I was talking to the people at Panic Table, it was just like they're talking about the genre of more alien kind of, campy stuff. And I was like, okay, this is cool. Like, I love all of those kinds of films and stuff, but it didn't, like, I don't know. It's not exhausted. There's plenty to do in that space. So I'm not here to dog on base Mothership, but it didn't grab me. And then I watched a video of Cameron interviewing Watt, the author of Cloud Empress, that's built on Mothership First Edition. And I was like, holy crap, this is the weirdest, coolest setting. And it was like when I first heard about Numenera. And if you don't know about Numenera, it's weird. It's awesome, and it's so freaking weird, and to an inaccessible level. I think a lot of the time when people first get eyes on Numenera, they're like, I don't know how to run this, because I don't have a lot of touchstones for this genre, like I don't have a lot to pull on and how I can properly set the tone. I don't think that should ever preclude you from not running the game, or preclude you from running the game. But similar experience in Cloud Empress. Cloud Empress on its cover says it is an ecological science fantasy RPG. It takes place on Earth, but there's magic. It's post-apocalyptic. Everything's overgrown, and then I think in the influences they mention like Nausicaa, which is Studio Ghibli. So it's
gotcha.
It is a beautiful book. I'm showing DJ here. A lot of you are probably just looking at things, or sorry, listening to things, But look at Cloud Empress art. It's
Yeah.
insane. It's like a couple color tones, but they're all very like chill and like scrawly.
that's gorgeous.
And just it's a beautiful book on just an
Yeah.
artistic perspective. But that made me like fall into the tone of the book really well. And I in thinking about future projects, because that's not really what I do for Battle School. You know, it's not
Right.
first and foremost supposed to be like this insanely evocative setting. It's like you're at a space academy for kids to beat each other up. Like that's what you're doing.
Right.
It's more of a combat sim than it is a setting for you to get deep into. And my God, not only are the game mechanics for Mothership and then effectively Cloud Empress so elegant, simple, and fun, but that setting's just wild and the art's so cool. And so like for me, the reason why I bring it up is like I'm looking at what I've done with Battle School, trying to tune it up to be better, and then getting so excited about weird settings and systems in the future. And then like maybe I need to look at doing a Mothership hack, or maybe I need to look at doing something on top of Cairn, or you know, Into the Odd, or these systems that I'm going, these not arrogantly, bear with me, but like to the joke I made earlier about like I've made a Powered by the Apocalypse game without ever reading or knowing Powered by the Apocalypse. That's because there's no new ideas out there.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
And
not.
so it's like I want to educate myself more on what you're saying with those base games that are huge touchstones for designers to get familiar with them and play them and iterate upon them. Because I have my own base system now with Battle School being what I'm calling Entwine that I want to iterate on, but I also don't want to be so arrogant to think that I'm going to design whole cloth new stuff that nobody's ever tried before.
Right. Yep.
So-
No, 100%. And that's the beauty of like TTRPGs in general, is like there are so many people who came before you and they all knew what they were doing and they didn't know what they were doing. And they built these amazing systems that are a great basis for a great game.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, it's really the nature of our industry to borrow and, you know,
Iterate.
adapt and change and to perfect. Because while it may not be the same game, right? Apocalypse World and Avatar Legends are not the same game.
Not at all.
At all. It's going to have an audience with somebody who likes the changes that you are going to be making to it. And I mean, really, if anything, this episode can be brought down to steal from everything that you see everywhere all the time and just be influenced and inspired by the things that you are
That's
reading.
why we tell stories.
By the games you're playing, by the books, I have all of it.
Yeah.
You can build a beautiful narrative and game and story based off of all of these things. And the best part is no one will ever know.
It's like I've always been like, even in my like spiritual walk, kind of in being like growing up in a Christian home and kind of deconstructing a lot of that and trying to learn how I perceive reality, my life, resolve a lot of that stuff. It has come down to story. And it's like, if I can't define even in my own life what part of the story I'm in, it's hard for me, right? There are times where, to use some Christianese, it's like I'm in a desert season. You know, it's like I'm in a season of singleness. No, but basically just like those there are times that it's so important to be able to understand what part of the story you're in, right? Like, and that's just life advice, right? Like knowing, oh, I'm in process right now, and this might be a blip in a story. You know, and then 10 years happened, and then this other thing happened. It's like, oh my gosh, you gave 10 entire years one sentence, right? Like that's a huge jump to make. And it's like sometimes that's life. And sorry to go off on that tangent, but back to the story thing. You are the sum of the stories that you tell, that you consume, that you are a part of. And like that's gonna come out in the games that we play together, and that's why I give a shit about any of this. That's why like on a deep spiritual human core level for me, I care about any of these games and care about storytelling, because I think that's what makes us human. Like if you look at the cavemen, that like, you know, that kind of structure, it's like we started telling stories and language, and things were verbally, like the tradition of verbally passing down traditions and stories and ideas of what makes us us. Like that's just we're doing that again. We're just doing that in games. And that's the big thing about like human experience that is reflective in the games we play. It's okay to be the sum of your stories. It's okay to take in those inspirations. And I'm a huge proponent of like being honest when you have your inspirations, of course, but also you're not going to know what you're stealing from half the time. I mentioned it earlier. Not. I don't know what I've stolen from Mass Effect because I played those games once. I loved them, but I didn't obsess over them to the point where like my inspiration that I may have pulled from them came years and years later. Right. So like, watch yourself with plagiarizing stuff, of course.
Yes.
But all of these games that are iterative, all of these campaigns that we play through are iterative on story forms and tropes and archetypes that we have experienced through human interaction on storytelling. And so steal and have fun with it and recognize that you're human and that stories are a big part of who you are, and have fun.
And remember, game mechanics, they can't be copyrighted.
They can't. It's great. All right, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out for this episode. This has been a blast. We've been doing some more informal, less structured episodes. One to lessen the load on us a little bit. We've done a lot of really big content lately. In the last few months, we've played a lot of really awesome games, long form stuff. We're going to keep doing actual plays. We're going to keep doing game demos. Those are some of our favorite things to record. They're also the biggest lift when it comes to editing and getting content out. That was part of our shift towards audio only for the podcast itself. But there's still going to be content on the Patreon. There's still going to be longer form stuff we put over there. There might be a delay, right? So if we do a demo that's like we play a 4-hour game, I'm going to still put out the audio version of the episode. Yeah. We'll even put out the audio version of the actual play, but I'm going to take my time with the edit and make sure it's good before it hits Patreon. And we'll try and get those out as soon as we can. But on that note, if you'd like to hear more from us and see more from us, where can people find us, Deej?
Hey, you can check us out at oneshotstavern.com. There you can find all of the links to all of our socials. You can find the Patreon. You can find our individual personal links and anything and everything you want. By the time this episode comes out, Gen Con is less than a month away.
Holy crap. That just
I know.
We gotta plan
that. If
we'll be there.
You are at Gen Con, look for us. We'll probably be wearing one of our shirts in order to kind of like be there. Hopefully we have cards and flyers to hand out. Will. That's the goal. So that way we can hand that stuff out. But also we're going to be interviewing people there, talking to people, having fun, and maybe I'm saying maybe we're going to have after hours games somewhere. Ooh. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah,
maybe
absolutely.
We'll run some Battle School after hours. And you can come and experience it for the first time. But
maybe we're gonna have some junk races. Ooh, yeah. I'll bring Hot Wheels. I got a lot of those.
Oh, that'd be fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in it. I'm into it. So yeah, just be on the lookout for us. And of course, oneshotstavern.com, where you can stay up to date, grab some cool merch. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you soon.